Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today, we're looking at manual testing.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, it's something that everyone interacts with every day, but most people don't really think about.
Right. Yeah, you only notice it when it goes wrong.
Exactly. So we've got some fascinating source material here that goes into the nuts and bolts of manual testing.
Should be interesting to unpack this.
Yeah, and I think what might surprise people is that
What's that?
even in this age of like AI and automation, 100% automation isn't really feasible.
Hmm. Yeah, there's still a lot that requires the human touch.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
So let's dig into that. Our source defines manual testing as the process of, well,
It's basically having humans test software, right?
yeah, that's the gist of it, instead of relying solely on automated scripts.
Because you need that human intuition to really understand how the software is going to be used.
Exactly. And our source really emphasizes the importance of what they call 100% test coverage.
Which makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah, can you unpack that a little bit?
Sure, so it means that you're aiming to test every single feature and function of the software.
Wow, so like every nook and cranny.
Yeah. And under as many different conditions as possible.
Oh, so like different browsers, different operating systems.
Yeah, all of that. Because you don't want to release an app that crashes every time someone tries to, you know.
Make a purchase or something.
Exactly. You need to minimize those critical errors.
Makes sense. But it's not just about preventing those big crashes, is it?
No, definitely not.
It's also about ensuring that the software is actually, enjoyable to use.
Usability is key.
Right. An app can be technically functional.
But if it's a nightmare to use, nobody's going to want to use it.
Exactly. So manual testers play a vital role in flagging those usability issues.
They're advocating for the user.
Right. So let's move on to some of the myths about manual testing that our source addresses.
Oh, this should be good.
Yeah. The first one is the idea that anyone can do manual testing.
Oh, I hear that one all the time.
Yeah. So true or false?
Definitely false. It may seem like just clicking around an app, but there's a lot more to it.
Like what kind of skills does it require?
Well, you need a keen eye for detail, for one.
So you got to be able to spot those tiny inconsistencies.
Yep, and strong analytical skills are crucial too.
So you have to be able to understand how all the different parts of the system fit together.
Absolutely, and you need to be able to think outside the box.
Oh, so to come up with those unusual scenarios that might trip up the software.
Exactly. You got to think like a user, but also like a hacker.
So it's about pushing the software to its limits.
Precisely.
Interesting. Okay, myth number 2. Testing guarantees a 100% defect-free product.
I think we both know the answer to that one.
Yeah, it sounds too good to be true.
It is. While thorough testing can significantly reduce the number of bugs, achieving absolute perfection is
Impossible.
very much, yeah.
Because software is just so complex.
There are just too many potential scenarios to account for everything.
So it's about managing risk and prioritizing.
Right. Finding
Yeah.
the most critical issues.
And making the software as robust as possible within the constraints of,
Time and budget.
yeah, exactly, real-world limitations.
It's all about being strategic.
Now, for a myth that I think a lot of people believe, automation is king and manual testing is obsolete.
Ah, yes, the classic automation versus manual debate.
But our source seems to disagree with that pretty strongly.
Well, the reality is that 100% automation just isn't realistic.
There are certain things that machines just can't do.
Right. Like when it comes to usability and user experience, you need that human judgment.
An automated script can tell you if a button clicks.
But it can't tell you if the button's in the right place or if the workflow makes sense.
So automation is great for those repetitive tasks.
Yeah, like regression testing to make sure new code hasn't broken anything.
But it can't replace the human touch entirely.
Nope, not even close.
Okay, last myth to bust testing is easy.
Oh man, if only that were true.
I think we can all agree that one's pretty ridiculous.
It takes a lot of skill and expertise to be a good manual tester.
Yeah, what are some of those skills that you need?
Well, you need to understand complex systems. You
Yeah.
need to be able to identify subtle flaws.
Attention to detail.
Definitely. And you need to be able to design comprehensive test cases.
So you need to be able to think like a developer in a way.
Kind of, yeah. You have to anticipate how the code might be used and where the weaknesses might be.
And then you have to communicate your findings to the developers.
Right. Good communication is crucial.
So it's not just about finding the bugs, it's about explaining them in a way that helps the developers fix them.
It's a collaborative process.
It sounds like manual testing is a lot more than just clicking around an app.
It really is. It's about understanding the interplay between technology, human behavior, and user experience.
It's about making sure that the software we use every day is actually usable and enjoyable.
Exactly.
So now that we've debunked some of those myths, Let's delve into the different types of manual testing.
Sounds good. Let's explore that toolbox. It really is like a toolbox. Each type of testing has its own specific purpose.
Okay, so let's break those down a bit. Our source mentions 6 main types: black box, white box unit system integration, and acceptance testing.
Yeah, that covers a pretty wide range.
It does.
Mhm.
So what exactly is black box testing?
Well, imagine you're given a new gadget like a phone or a camera, but you have no idea how it works inside.
So no instructions, no user manual.
Exactly. Black box testing is kind of like that. You're interacting with the software purely from the user's perspective.
So you're trying to figure out how it works just by using it.
Exactly. You're looking for any unexpected behavior, anything that doesn't make sense based on how it's supposed to work.
So essentially you're trying to break it without knowing how it's built.
In a way, yeah. You're trying to find those cracks in the surface.
Okay, I get it.
Eh.
Now what about white box testing? Is that the opposite?
You could say that with white box testing, you actually do have access to the source code and the internal structure.
Oh, so you can see how the sausage is made.
Exactly. You're testing the logic, the code paths, and looking for potential vulnerabilities at a much deeper level.
So for white box testing, you need a deeper understanding of programming and how the software is actually built.
Absolutely. It's more about verifying the internal workings and making sure the code is robust and efficient.
Okay, that makes sense. Now what about unit testing? Where does that fit in?
Unit testing is all about breaking down the software into its smallest testable components.
Like individual functions or modules?
Yeah, exactly. It's like testing each ingredient before you bake a cake.
Ah, so you're making sure each piece works on its own before you put them all together.
Exactly. It helps catch errors early on and prevents them from snowballing into bigger problems later.
So once you've tested those individual units, what happens next?
Then comes integration testing. That's where you start putting those pieces together and seeing how they interact.
So you're making sure the ingredients work well together in the recipe.
Precisely. You're looking for any conflicts or issues that might arise when those separate parts are combined.
And after integration testing, is that when we finally see the whole cake?
You got it. That's system testing. You're testing the entire system as a whole from end to end.
So you're simulating how a real user would interact with the software.
Exactly. You're looking at how all those integrated parts work together in a real-world environment.
And making sure the software meets its overall requirement.
Right. It's the final test before you serve the cake to your guests.
Okay, so we've covered black box, white box unit integration, and system testing. What's the last one? Acceptance testing.
Acceptance testing is all about getting the final stamp of approval from the stakeholders or the end users.
So it's like the guests trying the cake and giving their feedback.
Yeah, it's the final validation that the software meets their expectations and is ready to be launched into the real world.
Wow, that's a lot of different types of testing. I can see why it takes a skilled manual tester to know which approach to use in each situation.
Definitely. Each project is different, and each phase of development might require a different testing strategy.
Now, our source also provides a really helpful chart that compares manual testing with automated testing.
Yeah, that's a classic debate.
Right. So let's break down those key takeaways. Starting with manual testing, our source highlights its flexibility.
Yeah, manual testing is really adaptable, which is crucial in software development because things are always changing.
Right. New features, new
Yeah,
technologies, the landscape is constantly evolving.
exactly. So manual testers need to be able to adapt their approach and come up with creative solutions on the fly.
But our source also mentions that manual testing can be time-consuming and resource-intensive.
That's true. It can be a very meticulous process, which sometimes takes time.
And on the flip side, we have automated testing, which our source says is amazing for repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
It can save a ton of time.
Yeah, automation is great for things like regression testing, where you're running the same tests over and over again.
But it's not a silver bullet, right?
No, definitely not. Automated tests can be brittle. They rely on very specific conditions.
And if those conditions change, the tests can break.
Exactly. And they can't really account for those nuanced user interactions that we were talking about earlier.
So it sounds like the best approach is often a combination of both manual and automated testing.
Absolutely. You leverage the strengths of each approach to create a comprehensive testing strategy.
So you might use automation for those repetitive tasks.
And then use manual testing for those areas that require more human judgment and intuition.
Like usability testing.
Exactly.
Now, even though our focus today is on manual testing, our source does list a few popular tools for automating tests, like Selenium QTP, JMeter LoadRunner TestLink, and Quality Center.
Yeah, it's good to be aware of those tools, even if you're not using them directly.
It's all part of staying informed in this ever-evolving field.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the most compelling points our source makes is that manual testers really need to think like end users.
That's so important. It's not just about finding bugs, it's about understanding how those bugs might impact the actual user.
It's about empathy.
Exactly, putting yourself in the user's shoes and anticipating how they might interact with the software.
So a good manual tester isn't just looking for technical glitches. They're also looking for usability issues.
Yeah, things that might frustrate or confuse users.
Like if a button is in the wrong place or if the navigation is unclear.
Exactly. Those are the kinds of things that automated tests often miss.
Because they don't have that human understanding of what makes for a good user experience.
Right.
It's about making software that's not just functional, but also enjoyable to use.
Absolutely. It's about making technology that truly serves people.
That's a great point. It's about that human connection. The idea that humans are building software for other humans.
It makes you think about the people behind all those apps and websites we use every day.
Right. There's a whole team of people working to make sure those digital experiences are smooth and enjoyable.
And a lot of those people are manual testers working tirelessly behind the scenes.
And it really emphasizes how important manual testers are in that process.
Yeah, they're the ones who are making sure that the software is actually meeting those human needs.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into manual testing, I think a key takeaway is that it's not a one-time thing.
Oh, definitely not.
It's an ongoing process, right?
It has to be. Software is constantly evolving.
New features are added, bugs are fixed.
So the testing process never really ends.
That makes me think about all those software updates that are constantly coming out for my phone and my computer.
Right. It's like a never-ending cycle of testing and refining.
And behind all those updates are teams of manual testers, making sure that those changes are actually improvements.
Exactly. They're the ones who are ensuring that those updates don't introduce new problems.
It's like they're the guardians of quality.
Yeah, they're the ones who are making sure that the software keeps getting better.
Our source concludes by emphasizing that manual testing is essential for creating user-friendly software.
And that really brings it back to that core idea that we've been talking about.
Which is,
It's humans building software for other humans.
right, it's about that human connection, understanding how people will actually use the software.
It's about making technology that serves people, not just technology for technology's sake.
I like that. Technology that serves people.
Now, before we go, I'd like to leave our listeners with a question to think about.
Okay, what is it?
What software do you use regularly, and how would you approach testing it to make sure it's truly user-friendly?
Wow, that's a great question. It really makes you think about the software we interact with every day.
And it makes you appreciate the work that manual testers do to make that software as good as it can be.
It's easy to take those smooth digital experiences for granted.
But there are real people behind those experiences, people who are dedicated to making sure that the software works well.
So to all the manual testers out there, thank you.
Thank you for your hard work, your attention to detail, and your dedication to quality.
You're the unsung heroes of the software world.
You make our digital lives so much easier and more enjoyable.
So we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of manual testing.
It's a fascinating field that's constantly evolving.
And we hope you've gained a new appreciation for the crucial role that manual testing plays in our increasingly digital world.
It's all about making technology that works for people.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.